Okay, sasa tunaweza endelea vizuri without any problem. I believe my voice can still be heard. So we looked at three things: the heart, the blood, and then the blood vessels. So today I want us to look at the heart, and then we look at some conditions in relationship to diet. We look at some diseases in relationship to diet, and then high blood pressure being a very common condition. It affects actually about 30% of our population in Kenya. That just tells you how serious it is. 30% is not quite smaller number. That would mean it's more or less one of the leading conditions, cardiovascular conditions with the most prevalence in the country. So there are four major functions of our heart. We've looked at the functions of the blood, if you recall. The functions of the heart is more or less different from the functions of our blood. And one of the functions of the heart is generating blood pressure. And how does the heart generate blood pressure? By contracting. Someone is unmuted. By contracting, and we'll actually get into that a little more deeply when talking about high blood pressure, so that we understand and see how this particular condition, happens or comes to be. So number one, the heart acts like a pump that produces force, and this particular force that the heart produces or generates pumps or ensures that blood travels in our blood system. And then the second function of the heart is routing blood. What does it mean by routing blood? Giving blood a sense of direction in your body. Giving blood a sense of direction in the body. And in our body, there are majorly two types of circulation or flow of blood. Number one is pulmonary circulation. Number two is the systemic circulation.
Bezel, please.
Yes.
Are you sharing your screen? Because we don't see any screen.
I was actually sharing my screen.
Yeah, we don't see any screen.
Oh. Apologies about that. Actually thought my screen was. I believe you can now see it. So I was saying that the blood, that's the heart. It has four different types of functions. We have number one is generating blood pressure, and when we talk about blood pressure generation, the heart does this by contracting. We saw that the heart is a muscle, and the heart muscles are called myocardium. My myocardial muscles. Myo simply means muscle, cardia simply means the heart. So when the muscles of the heart contract, the heart produces force that pushes blood to the various places that blood is essentially needed. And then the second function of the heart is routing blood pressure, or rather, just giving, not routing blood pressure, but routing blood, giving blood a sense of direction, giving blood a sense of direction. What do I mean by giving blood a sense of direction? Your heart is responsible for channeling blood to wherever it is needed. There is blood that your heart will channel to the lungs. There is blood that your heart will channel, let me say, to your lower limb, that's your legs or your upper limbs, your hands, or probably to the heart itself. So routing blood is just giving it a sense of direction. And there are two major types of circulation in the body. We have pulmonary circulation and we have systemic circulation. Pulmonary simply means in relation to the lungs, in relation to the lungs. So pulmonary circulation is where blood from the heart is taken to your lungs. And then the blood from the lungs is taken back to the heart. So the taking of blood to the lungs and from the lungs to the heart is called pulmonary circulation. And then it is very, very essential for us to know this. And then we have systemic circulation. Systemic circulation is just the flow of blood throughout your body. Just give me a minute, kindly. Once more, thank you very much for your patience. And let's proceed. So that systemic circulation is just the pumping of blood throughout the body to all the cells in the body, your head, your legs, to everywhere in your body. And this is made possible by the aorta. So it's the aorta that gets blood from your heart, and it takes this blood through different arteries to the places that they're actually needed. And then we have another function is ensuring one-way blood flow. We'll actually look at valves of the heart, ensuring one-way blood flow. So the heart ensures that blood does not flow back from whence it came. And this is made possible by the presence of valves, in your heart. And actually, when these particular valves are interfered with, they're essentially muscles. Let's say they become weak. In cases of aortic stenosis and all that, there might be problems with your system. Let's say probably your blood pressure inapanda na mambo kama hayo, or your heart gets too weak, or you start experiencing things like chest pain. So it is very, very essential for blood to flow in one direction, one particular direction. And we have valves in the heart, and we have valves also in blood vessels, majorly in your veins. And then secondly, we have thirdly, not thirdly or secondly, but then the last function of the heart is regulating blood pressure. That one we'll deeply see some on Sunday, if you guys will allow us to have a class. So one of the ways in which this one happens is the force and the rate of the heart contraction. When the heart contracts and relaxes, blood supply and the blood pressure in your system is regulated. So the heart has 4 different chambers, as you can see in this picture. We have a chamber called the right atrium, and this particular atrium receives blood, deoxygenated blood from your body, and it is the venous, how can I say it? This one up here is the superior vena cava. Blood coming from your upper system. And then we have inferior vena cava. Just look at the drawings. This one down here, inferior vena cava. So these particular venuses, venae in Latin, they bring blood into the right atrium. And then there's a door here. Let me surround it. Acha nichore circle. There's a door here. Just look at the circle that I've drawn in red. And this door will open to allow blood get into your right ventricle. And when blood gets into the right ventricle, it is taken out, and it gets to your lungs. So we'll look at that. The main objective for this particular picture is for you to see that the heart has 4 different chambers, and these particular chambers will come in handy when we'll be talking about high blood pressure and conditions like ischemic heart disease and other heart diseases. So we have that, and then in the heart there are 4 different doors. There are 4 doors, and these doors are called valves. There are 4 doors that are called valves, and we saw that valves only allow unidirectional flow of blood. They only allow blood to flow in one particular direction in your system, in your heart. There's this valve here. I'll number it 1. It's normally called the tricuspid valve, or the bicuspid valve, ama the mitral valve. And then on this left ear, this one here, the names of these valves are really not that essential if you it's not really that essential that much. But if you are someone who is curious, someone who'd want to use a stethoscope na vitu kama hizo to monitor, the quality and the health of the heart. If you are someone who is someone who'd like to read reports, the heart lab reports, the heart, it's important for you to know them. So, and then we have the aortic valve. This one is the 3rd one. Aortic. It's called aortic because it opens to the aorta. This is the mitral valve, or the bicuspid valve. It's called bicuspid because it more or less has two cusps, or 2 cuspids. And then we have this one as the tricuspid valve. The one on the left, this one here, tricuspid valve, it's called tricuspid because it has 3 particular cusps. Cups are more or less the heads. So this one is the mitral valve, ama bicuspid. And then we have the tricuspid valve. I'll surround them. And then we have the aortic valve. Just follow the arrow, you'll see. And then we have the pulmonary valve because it opens to the pulmonary artery. So it's called the pulmonary valve. So these are the doors that opens and closes to allow blood to either pass through them or contain blood within a particular chamber of the heart. These particular valves, they are muscles. Now, when they can easily become very weak, and if they become weak, you might have problems. An example of a condition is arterial fibrillation. In arterial fibrillation, majorly, there's a problem with the mitral valve, as we will see. This one here, we look at it on Sunday. This one also, we look at it on Sunday. So we have blood flow, how blood flows within your system ama within your heart. Hii ni rahisi sana kujua ukisoma. I'll just let it, nitawaachia msome. So we'll get to, let's look at some few diseases here. This is the slide I was actually looking for. Let's look at some diseases here. I didn't intend to go fast in the first slide, but what happened initially when the class was beginning forced me. So I want us to look at some nutrition therapy. Some of the things that I'll talk about kwa hii slides are things that we've mentioned before in our nutrition classes. So let's begin with some statistics here. And this kind of statistic in health is called epidemiology. And we are told that in Kenya, about 13% of deaths are cardiovascular related, 13% deaths. And then when we look at the total number, the total percentage of people visiting hospitals, those who get admitted, 25% of them normally get admitted due to cardiovascular diseases. You know, simple things like chest pain. You know, chest pain can easily be a cardiovascular condition. If simple things as that. And globally, cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of deaths. Cardiovascular diseases are the leading causes of death worldwide. The America contributing more to it due the diet that is there. And most countries actually follow after the Western kind of diet that brings cardiovascular diseases a lot. Cardiovascular diseases are majorly 100%, not 100%, they're 85% diet related. Last year, I believe in a month like this, last year, August, I received a call from a patient who was, suffering from AFib, arterial fibrillation. And, interestingly, she was, saa zingine patients hudanganya. She had this condition for quite some time, and alikuwa slotted for surgery. She's from Texas, USA. Alikuwa slotted for some surgery. The husband also had the same condition, some mitral valve problem and arterial fibrillation, na alifanyiwa surgery, akaekewa the artificial valves and what have you. But after then his life has haikuwa irudi kuwa normal ama haikuwa sawa. So this lady was looking for some alternative to surgery and some alternative to the artificial valves that at times are put to just lengthen your lifespan. And it's interesting, from my conversation with her, alikuwa ananiambia about her diet. She was a vegetarian, but then at the same time she was overweight, obese, and it was very difficult for me to relate those two. The two do not in any way agree. There is no way. Well, it's possible someone can be obese and at the same time be a vegetarian. It's true. That's if you do not do your like I'm talking about vegan, si kukuwa vegetarian. There's a difference. She was a vegan, hakuwa anatumia any animal product and all that, but at the same time alikuwa obese. So at times it is indeed possible, but when you do it well, hakuwezi kuwa na shida. So the problem was just a lot of fats and a lot of refined diet in her meals. fats. In as much as she was doing a vegan diet, she wasn't eating any animal products. But such things might affect. An example, if you take a lot of calories in your system, the bad fats was in a shoot. The same bad fats that shoots when you eat animal products. And when you take a lot of calories, the excess calories will be stored in your body as fats. Quite interesting. So the most common form of cardiovascular disease are the coronary heart disease. Quite common in heart disease in Kenya is really not that common so far. Well, I'm not that experienced enough, but I've only met 3 with chronic cases wenye wamekaa nazo sana. And majorly, we'll talk about these things, all of them. Majorly, coronary heart disease is usually due to atherosclerosis. 90% of coronary heart disease is due to atherosclerosis. Coronary is more or less a blood vessel that supplies your heart. So when this blood vessel that supplies the heart is hardened, or the fats that are the blood that is in it fattens ama hardens ama ikue ngumu, then there is a problem. When the fats in it, how is it normally called? Atherosclerotic plaguing. I don't know how to explain this. In your blood, there is what is known as lipid. And the lipids that are in your blood, the lipids of fats and oils, the lipids that are in your blood are things like cholesterols. There are 2 kinds of cholesterols in your blood, LDL and HDL. And when LDL ikiwa mingi na triglyceride, which is also another kind of lipid in your blood, zikiwa mingi, then the lipids that are in your blood can easily zinaweza harden. They might harden and cause some plaguing there, causing some of these diseases. So as you can see, coronary heart disease usually is due to atherosclerotic plaguing. We'll look at that more. And as I have said, most people with cardiovascular health disease, they suffer from coronary heart conditions. Very few of them suffer from heart failure. Very few suffer from high blood pressure, diseases of arteries, and stroke. So coronary heart disease and then stroke. And stroke, there are different kinds of stroke. We'll actually talk about stroke vizuri. And then we have, on top of coronary heart disease, tumeona coronary heart disease ni nini? Tukona myocardial infarction. Myocardial infarction is what you guys normally call heart attack. And it is normally just sudden reduction to coronary blood flow. And it's just due to, clots, either clotting of blood, it's either the blood has clotted, ama mafuta imekuwa mingi, ika-clot, ikakuwa ngumu kwa damu. And then we have things like stroke. Stroke is blocked blood supply to the brain tissues. And there are different types of stroke. And there are 2 major types of stroke. It's either I'm getting a little excited. So there are 2 major types of stroke. There's one thing that I want you to know when it comes to stroke. In stroke, blood supply to the brain tissues is deficient. Haiko sana. So this is what happens in stroke. The blood supply can be slow ama deficient due ya number 1, there is some blockage in the blood vessels. The blood vessels that supply the brain. Number 2, there might be a hemorrhage. Can someone tell us what a hemorrhage is? Kevin, ulitusaidia kupata slides. Can you kindly remind us what a hemorrhage is? This is not even the spelling. Let me see if I'll get it right the second time.
Okay, I don't know exactly what it is, but it's an anal disease that sometimes causes pain. Someone is not the toilet or something. So I don't know exactly what is happening.
Okay, so hemorrhage is more or less blood loss as a result of rupture of the blood vessels, rupture. Stroke can either be caused as a result of the arterioles in your brain, they've ruptured. Zimerupture to probably due to very high blood pressure and sorts and so on. Zikaanza kubleed to hapo, so they are not really going to the various places that it's supposed to go. That's the blood. It's not flowing to the place that it's supposed to flow. So that's what hemorrhage is. Rage is rupture, hemo is blood. So those are the two things that majorly cause stroke. We will look at them a little more in depth. Myocardial infarction, we look at it a little more in depth. Tutaongelea vitu kama embolism, thrombosis. Is it thrombosis ama thrombus? Embolism na thrombus. So the other thing is atherosclerosis. I want us to look at atherosclerosis due to tumeona it's the common cause ya hizi vitu zote. So let me see. Let's say that blood clots somewhere in your heart. Do you know that blood can move? It can be pushed from the heart all the way to the blood vessels that supply the brain. And when they get pushed to the blood vessels that supply the brain, the blood vessels will be blocked and blood will not get to the brain. That's how serious atherosclerotic plaguing is. You might have blood blockage, not really blood blockage, but the plaguing on probably one of the blood vessels on your limb, your lower limb, your legs. And this particular clot on your leg can easily travel from the legs all the way to your heart, all the way to your brain. And they block the blood vessels that supply. So what I'm trying to differentiate here is thrombus, embolism, and ischemia. So there's number one, a clot anywhere in the body. There's a clot anywhere in the body, in the heart, in the heart. Just give me a minute. Okay, let's proceed. So let's begin with atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis What I wrote here is arterial walls, so the walls of your arteries become progressively thickened due to plague accumulation. Due to plague accumulation, we look at a picture. Let me just draw the lumen of the. So let's say a plague accumulates here and it continually grows. That is atherosclerosis, and it reduces the pathway in your arteries. So the consequences of atherosclerosis are these one. The consequences, this particular clot along on the walls of your artery, they can break or they can rupture. The plagues can rupture, promoting blood clotting. And it will also interfere with blood flow. How? Because it narrows the lumen, the artery of the lumen. Your arteries ziko na different parts. The lumen is that pathway through which blood flows. So it narrows the pathway of the blood flow. And then we have enlarged thrombus, and then embolism, and then ischemia. This is what I was trying to explain initially. So a thrombus is more or less just this formation. This thing that I've drawn with this plague, we can call it a thrombus, that particular plague. And this particular plague, the thrombus, when it ruptures or when it breaks loose, it can be transferred, it can be circulated to the brain through the waves to the blood. And when it is cut loose, it's called an embolus. The process through which inasafirishwa ndani ya damu inaitwa embolism, and it can cause what is known as ischemia. Ischemia is inaitwangwa lack of blood supply to tissues. And when there's not enough blood supply to tissues, inamaanisha there's not enough oxygen going to them. So ischemia is just we can also say it's just the natural death of cells when they are deprived of oxygen, kitu kama hiyo. So ischemia is lack of blood supply to the tissue or lack of oxygen supply to a given tissue. So this is how bad atherosclerosis is. And the other thing, obstructed blood flow to coronary arteries can cause angina pectoris or heart attack. Angina pectoris is what we commonly call chest pain. Angina pectoris is chest pain. So when this particular atherosclerosis or the atherosclerosis plague it can affect the coronary arteries. And as I said, the coronary arteries, they're the arteries that supply your heart with blood. Every organ in the body is supplied with blood. So the bloods that supply the heart with blood inaitwa coronary arteries. So even the blood needs what? The heart needs blood. Even the heart needs blood. So when the supply of blood to the heart is interfered with by atherosclerosis plague. I'm very careful to say atherosclerotic. Atherosclerotic is something else. Atherosclerotic is hardening of arteries, not thickening of the arteries. It has nothing to do with the plague. What atherosclerosis is? What is the plague? I really don't know if I'm making sense. We have atherosclerosis, and then we have let me just say atherosclerotic plague. So this one is more or less accumulation of fats, that thicken on the walls of the artery. But atherosclerosis is just hardening of the arteries. So if you hear me say atherosclerosis, what I simply just mean is atherosclerosis. You hapa tutaongelea atherosclerosis anywhere. So when these particular plagues build on the walls of your coronary arteries, they might cause chest pain or heart attack. Kitu kama hiyo. So this is how it happens. I placed a picture here with, as you can see, just on this heart, and on top of it, kuna the coronary arteries supplying it with blood, because it has cells that really needs nutrients and the oxygen and everything. So the coronary, number one, the coronary arteries deliver oxygen and nutrient to the heart muscles. And then number two, as you can see, the vessel that has been cut open in number two, there is some buildup of fats zenye imeanza, fat imeanza ku build up kwa the inside the artery. So number two, plague often develops at regions where arteries branch or bend. Very, very essential, where they branch or bend. And then thirdly, when arteries become blocked by plague or a blood clot, the part of the muscle that the arteries supply with blood may die. And inaweza, when they die, it might cause problems kama chest pain ama heart attack at times. So atherosclerosis, as we have seen, some of its consequences is peripheral artery disease. Number one, peripheral artery disease is more or less the arteries on your arms and your legs are affected. And what will happen? This can cause pain and weaknesses in the legs and feet, especially while walking. It might cause pain and weakness in the legs, especially while walking. Number two, the second consequence of atherosclerosis is kidney disease or kidney failure. It can cause kidney disease or kidney failure when the arteries that supply the kidney with blood are blocked. And then we have the most common cause of aneurysm. That is atherosclerosis. And so it's essential for us to know these things. So what are some of the causes of atherosclerosis? We have shear and stress. That is the high blood pressure. When there's a lot of pressure against the walls of the arteries, when there's a lot of pressure against, let me draw it well. When there's a lot of pressure against the walls of the arteries, this is your artery. This is your artery. So when there's increased amount of pressure on the walls of your arteries, the walls will be inflamed. And when the walls are inflamed, this is what will happen. This thing here, thrombolism, a thrombus will be formed. Thrombolism. Let me write thrombus. A thrombus will be formed. The plague itakuwa formed when that's one of the ways the plague is formed, when the walls of the arteries are inflamed either by very high blood pressure. And then we have abnormal blood lipids. Blood lipids tuliona ziko mingi sana. Kuna triglyceride, HDL, LDL, VLDL, very low lipid, very low density lipoprotein, VLDL. So when talking about abnormal blood lipids, there's number one, LDL. LDL is low density lipoprotein. It accumulates on susceptible artery wall regions. If it accumulates, inakuwa shida. And then we have high when the very low density lipoprotein becomes high, it influences the production of other atherogenic lipoproteins. Atherogenic lipoproteins. These are proteins that are connected to your lipids. And these particular proteins, they cause atherosclerosis. Atherogenic lipoproteins are lipoproteins with the ability of producing atherosclerosis. Why? Because they promote inflammation. So in your blood, we saw that in the blood, lipids are normally transported in form of lipoproteins, like they get amalgamated ama zinashikana na proteins alafu zinasambaa ama zinasambazwa ndani ya mwili. So how does HDL contribute to the development of atherosclerosis? HDL huwa contribute in any way. HDL is the good kind of cholesterol. LDL is the bad one. So when HDL is in just good normal, the normal levels, it won't cause any problems. But when HDL is very low in your blood, it becomes bad. So HDL normally what it does, it removes LDL. Inapeleka LDL to the liver where LDL is done away with. Ama inakuwa reduced. So HDL ni kama tu polisi anashika LDL kama LDL iko in excess, so inashika the excess LDL alafu inaipeleka kwa liver where LDL is transformed. So that's just how it happens. And when we take a lot of fiber foods, omega-3 and omega-6 foods, we increase our HDL levels in the blood. So it's like just empowering the police to do their work well. So other causes of atherosclerosis is cigarette smoking, as we saw, inflammation to the walls of the arteries in mbaya sana. And then we have diabetes mellitus, hiyo iliongelewa. And then we proceed. We have coronary heart disease. We've talked about atherosclerosis. Let's talk about coronary heart disease. So what we really just need to avoid are the things that increase our LDL. And let's proceed. Some of these things will make sense as we continue with our training. So coronary heart disease, or coronary artery disease, it is the most common type of cardiovascular disease, and it normally leads to angina pectoris. Tulisema angina pectoris ni nini? Redemptor.
Just the pain.
Yes?
Just the pain.
Yes. Yeah, chest pain. Yeah, and then it can lead to heart attack and sudden death. So tuliona coronary heart disease inamaanisha the coronary artery zimekuwa blocked. And what are coronary arteries? They are the blood vessels that supply your heart with blood. Why do we have to supply the heart with blood? Because the heart has cells that need nutrients and need oxygen for their survival. Majorly the outside part of your heart. The inside part, it interacts with the blood as the blood gets inside and out. So the outside part really needs this blood. So the most common cause of coronary heart disease is atherosclerosis. And some of the symptoms of coronary heart diseases, we have pain or discomfort in the chest region, pain or discomfort. So angina pectoris symptoms are triggered by exertion or subside with rest. This is in angina pectoris. Ukitembea in increased physical activity, kutakuwa na more pain. It will increase more and more as you continue increasing your physical activity ama kufanya exercise. A good example, let's say ukipanda stairs. So ukipanda stairs unasikia ni kama kifua inakuuma sana. Yeah, and all that. And then heart attack causes severe pain, lasts longer and occurs without exertion. Tukiongelea myocardial infarction, it also causes chest pain. There are 3 types of myocardial infarction. I hope tutaziona, where you might not know you have it, the condition, lakini uko nayo. You might not know you have it juu haina symptoms at first. That is the first stage. The second stage, there are some slight symptoms, the chest pain. And then the third stage, the chest pain is even worse. So the other symptoms for this condition we are looking at, we always like abbreviating it as CHD. The other symptoms are shortness of breath, and then unusual weakness or fatigue, kuna nausea, there is vomiting, there is abdominal discomfort. And what are some of the risk factors CHD? Major non-modifiable risk factors. These are the risk factors that you cannot in any way do anything to help. You cannot do anything to help. Why is that? Because number one, you can never change your gender. Number two, you can never change your age. You can increasing age, hakuna venye, hakuna dawa ya increasing age, but you can always try and keep fit by just doing exercise and eating well. You can always try and just keep young and just keeping everything in good order. And then you have family history of heart disease. So these are things that just places you at a vantage position ya kupata hii condition more. Let's say when you're old, you are at a higher risk of, getting this condition as compared to someone who's young. They only put us at positions. I don't know how to explain that. Risk factors. I don't know how to explain what it means. But ni kama tu vitu zenye zinafanya zinafanya upate hii ugonjwa kwa urahisi. Zinaweza zikafanya upate ugonjwa kwa urahisi. And then we have risk factors that can be modified. An example, if you have high LDL cholesterol levels, so ukiwa na a lot of cholesterol in your blood, it is a risk factor. You might end up having CHD if you have high cholesterol, but that one can be modified. How can you modify that? Eating right, exercise. We've talked about what can be done for cholesterol. Vitu kama flax seeds zinasaidia kulower cholesterol levels. Vitu kama garlic zinasaidia kulower cholesterol levels. Things like moringa greatly help in lowering cholesterol levels. When we are talking about fibers, we also saw how psyllium husks greatly help in lowering cholesterol levels, and eating fruits in a variety, mostly the outer peel of fruits, pia tuliona venye zinaweza lower cholesterol levels, and just avoiding saturated fatty acids and the vegetable fats. Those are some of the things that we looked at. Those are some of the ways you can modify these risk factors. So we have high blood triglyceride levels. Triglyceride is the VLDL, very low density lipoprotein. levels, and we saw that one of the things zenye zina increase triglyceride levels kwa mwili ni vitu kama highly refined foods, vyakula zenye hazina fiber, eating highly sugary foods, ama eating a lot of foods with a lot of caloric content in them zinafanya your blood triglyceride, the triglyceride in your blood zipande. Triglyceride, it's there's a message that was sent in the group that it is, one of those bad boys in your blood, one of those gangs, or those things that causes trouble in the city. But triglyceride or LDL, they'll only cause trouble when they are in excess. Lakini zikiwa in normal levels, they're very good people. They won't cause you any problem. And one of the things that we normally do to make them bad boys ni kujispoil. Unajua ukispoil mtoto anaweza haribika. So ni kujispoil na vitu kama soda and so on and so forth. Tanikubalia tu dakika moja ni power my laptop. Today we have a lot of bad luck. It happens that my charger is not working. This is interesting. Okay, acha tu tuendelee penye itaishia moto. We can probably even proceed with my phone. Someone asks, is CHD hereditary? If yes, what is the likelihood or percentage that